DHS Acting Secretary Chad Wolf. Mr. Secretary, good to see you.
Good to see you, Sean.
Also worth noting that you are the chairman of the America First Homeland Security and Immigration Center, if I'm not mistaken. Congratulations on standing that up.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You bet. The president just now coming out, making very brief remarks, saying kind of what we knew, right? That it had already been announced that we had this ceasefire, and almost trying to, in a way, not to get too political in this, but basically try to let everyone know what he had been doing for the last week. 6 phone calls with Prime Minister Netanyahu, a call with Egypt's president, a call with the leader of the Palestinian Authority. I'm not really sure what the goal was tonight. Do you have any? I mean, it almost sounds like he wanted to make sure people knew that he had been engaged in this despite sort of the quiet nature of what had occurred over the past few days.
Well, I certainly agree with you, Sean. Obviously, the ceasefire is good news, not only for the American people, but obviously our ally, people of Israel as well. But usually when you have a presidential address to the nation, or at least some remarks, you're telling the nation, you're telling the American people something new, something they haven't heard of. Obviously we didn't hear that today. So I think if the president continues to do more and more of these, unfortunately, I think more and more folks are going to tune out at the end of the day. You need to take questions from reporters, too. So there's a lot of questions about, will the ceasefire, will it be sustained? And there's a lot of other pressing questions. And not to take a handful of them, even if you just take 3 or 4, I think it's fine. But to take a handful of questions from the press is really just sort of basic one-on-one press conference.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are wondering about our relationship with Israel. But I do want to switch gears with you, Mr. Secretary. The White House is secretly flying migrant children into Tennessee in the middle of the night. There is new video released from Chattanooga showing this. It is very interesting to see that, one, this came out Friday around 1:30 a.m. The children appear to be in their early teens. They're carrying matching bags with them. There's so much video footage of this, but we had Congresswoman Diana Harshbarger from Tennessee. She came out and said, now Tennessee is essentially a border state. So how are Biden's policies on the border affecting the rest of the country? And is this a breach of our security?
Well, I believe it is. And just as we talk about the minors here, they are moving minors and flying minors all across the country because they are overwhelmed. They've got at one point over 20,000 minors, both in DHS custody and HHS custody. That is breaking the system. We've never seen numbers like that before. Even when we had the crisis back in 2019, never seen these types of numbers. So they don't know really what to do with them. So they are moving them across the country. And what we say now is that every city in America is a border community, because what occurs on that border, whether it's violence, whether it's the drugs, or where it's the human trafficking and the human smuggling, it is now affecting communities all across this country. So certainly, cities in Tennessee, but I would say cities elsewhere as well. Everyone is experiencing the struggles that they're having on that southwest border today.
So you're right? All of these states are becoming border states because they're shipping these folks, children, adults, to these states. But I want to get to the end of Lindsay's question. If you were still running the Department of Homeland Security, would you have any security concerns about the people that are coming into this country and just getting sent around into the various states? Absolutely,
100%. Obviously, they are releasing thousands and thousands of individuals into American communities every month. 187,000 illegal apprehensions in the month of April alone. And we know that they're releasing into the interior of the United States about 40% of those folks. And so those are minors and those are family units. And we know the family units, they are doing that within a matter of hours. So they're not able to do the interviews, the security checks, and the like. So there's a number of security concerns along with the humanitarian concerns that are going on. And then we have to keep in mind, Sean, the 187,000 that we apprehended in April were just the ones that we caught. There's probably another 20,000 of what we call gotaways. These are individuals that we never come into contact with. We don't know who they are. They could be MS-13 gang members. They could be terrorists. They could be anyone under the sun. We don't know because we have such an influx of individuals coming across the border today.
That's crazy. I can't believe that doesn't get more attention. I mean, the idea that people are coming into our country, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we can't really track them, can we? I mean, we don't know much about them. We're not doing an interview with them, and they just kind of disappear into America?
So DHS does not track the family units that they release. Sometimes they release them without even giving them what we call a notice to appear, which is a notice to appear in immigration court. They are so overwhelmed that they're not even issuing.
I think we're having a technical difficulty with
just
him.
getting to the good stuff.
I know, but it's so sad to hear about some of these humanitarian issues. And I wanted to ask him, there are these facilities that are actually shutting down, Sean, in Georgia and Massachusetts because of reports of misconduct in those. And he talks about the administration being overwhelmed, yet they won't call it a crisis. They won't address it. VP Harris hasn't gone there.
Right.
It is so unfortunate.
Well, the other thing, Lindsay, that I think is big news today is the House of Representatives today, by a single vote, 213 to 212. Mr. Secretary, do we have you back?
You do.
We were just talking about this. I just wanted to pivot to this real quick before we go. The House, by a single vote, 213 to 212, passed a bill all on Democrats that allocates $2 billion for the Capitol security, including fencing. And yet these same Democrats don't have the same concerns about our southern border and who's coming in as they do about their own protection at the Capitol.
It's absolutely amazing. I think one of the first things that they did after January 6th was to erect a fence, to erect a wall system around the Capitol complex to secure those folks. And so if it's okay for them at the end of the day, it certainly should be okay for our country and for those communities along the border to have an effective border wall system and other technologies to protect us from individuals coming across the border illegally.
It's unbelievable. I cannot get over the fact of what you said a moment ago, and I wish you were still in charge, because the idea that we're bringing this many people into our country, we're not doing any kind of background checks, and we don't continue to follow them should frighten and concern every single American. Mr. Secretary, I wish we had more time, but I do thank you for being here today and letting us know this important information.
All right. Thank you, Sean.